Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So here's a newly updated Salamangreat deck profile as promised. So this won the votes that I made the poll on, and yeah, I didn't think Salah was going to be this popular of a choice to pick with. But anyway, I decided to go back to the strategy and completely change it up a bit because, right now, the best decks right now are Tri-Brigade, we still got Zoo, we still got Drytron, which funny enough, nobody in my locals actually plays Drytron, so at least I don't have to worry about that. But just about everyone I know plays freaking Tri-Brigade. There's still Invoked Shaddoll, Eldritch, and yeah, there's a lot of stuff. Even Sky Striker is being played quite often in my locals too, so I decided to kind of like build around those strategies, just basically like be ready for them whenever I have to deal with them. So yeah, but anyway, I figured I'd just show you guys what I got this time around, and yeah, let's get started. So the main deck is 40, oops, well that already spoiled a card. But yeah, the main deck is 40 cards. It just looks bigger because I got new Dragon Shield sleeves. But anyway, yeah, so starting off with one copy of Gazelle. So basically the heart and soul of the deck gets you everything you need. Dubs either a monster or a spell or trap card that you need for Salamangreat specifically. And yeah, it's just a free extender. 3 Foxy. Has a Pot Duality effect. I already mentioned this before, but you're mostly going to use this graveyard effect to special summon him back from the grave and also pop a face-up spell or trap. Keep in mind, you do have to have a face-up spell or trap available already on the field to use that effect, but that's not going to be a problem because since you have the field spell anyway, it's a good way just to bring him out anyway. 3 copies of Spinny. I decided to bump this up to 3, mainly because this plus Foxy is full combo. So like if you don't have like a card like Flame Buffalo in hand, you can still like go like crazy with your combos. So like you can normal summon Foxy. You don't have to use the effect if you don't need to, but if you can, go ahead and do so. And then you can go with Spinny and so on. So like yeah, and plus they make a free Mirage Stallion, which by the way I'll get to talk about Mirage Stallion later on as we progress. But anyway, moving on, 2 copies of Jack Jaguar. Definitely one of your best key cards to recycle all your resources. The fact that, he shuffles back a salad monster from your grave back to the deck or extra deck and brings himself out, it's pretty nice. Falco, which recycles your spell and trap cards, and it's also a free extender too, so if you need to like bounce back your Gazelle, for example, you can special summon this card from the grave, and this plus Jack Jaguar make a free rank 4, so yeah, definitely a good card to run too. Alright, so that's it for the salad monsters. Moving on here. We're running 3 copies of Flame Buffalo, probably the strongest normal summon in the entire deck because one, it's easy to chain block with Balinks, so that way you always get that draw 2 effect, so long as you have a Cyberse monster in hand, which again, you should be able to anyway because the whole deck is Cyberse. And the fact that, yeah, it's just a good way to dig into your deck even deeper. 3 Parallel Exceed. Some people are choosing to cut this, I don't know why. I mean, it is such a powerful card, that fact that you can get a free rank 4 off of it too. So yeah, I still feel like Parallel Exceed is still a staple for this deck, so I would definitely recommend playing this at 3. And I am running 1 copy of Sea Archiver, is just another free level 3 monster to run. So, and the fact that you can also chain block with this card too, so Sea Archiver is pretty nuts. And that's pretty much it for the Cyberse engine. Now moving on to hand traps already. For hand traps, I'm playing 3 copies of Ash, I mean, it is a fire monster, it's recyclable, which is nuts. 3 Ghost Spell. Ghost Spell is super strong this format because, against the Tri-Brigade matches specifically, you can basically stop Tri-Brigade Revolt. It's also good to deal with like any form of graveyard reliant effect too. Like for example, if you're up against a mirror match, you can fizzle the Will of the Salamangreat card. You can stop cards like Monster Reborn, which some people do run. I've actually seen some people run that card. So yeah, Ghost Spell is a good way just to stop that, or just to recycle resources from the graveyard. So yeah, Ghost Spell is just really nuts. And of course, I'm running 3 copies of Impermanence. I wanted to have room for Effect Veiler, but I didn't have any room at all for it, so I decided to go with Impermanence instead because, it's so much better. The fact that you can use it going first or going second just to stop like problematic threats. This is super good because like against Drytron, you target the right card, negate their effects, they end their turn. Against Tri-Brigade, you hit that Fractal, and they're pretty much stuck because they don't really know what to do from there. So yeah, Impermanence is just such a great card. And if it's in the same column to where they activate a spell or trap to anyone, by the way, that card gets negated, so it's pretty nuts. Alright, so moving on to spells. 3 copies of Signet Mining, can't really stress that enough. It's one of the best searchers in the entire deck. 3 Desires, a card that comes and goes from 2 to 3, so decided for this format, bringing it back to 3 is good. A card that I wasn't too sure yet if I wanted it at 3, but seeing it now that the Salad engine is much bigger. It's not as compact as it used to be. I decided to go and bump Will of the Salamangreat to 3. So before I was only running it at 2 because I felt like you didn't really need to see it that much, but now with the current format, you do need to see this more often. So, and the fact that this card helps you from eating your normal summon too early, it's super good. Again, if you do need to use your normal summon for Flame Buffalo, that's fine too. Will of the Salamangreat is like a good backup card in case, you know, your opponent happens to make deck Nibiru, and this card really helps you play around Nibiru too. So yeah, Will of the Salamangreat is such a great card. Again, I was wrong to not run this at 3, and now I am running it at 3. For the one-ofs, one Sanctuary, you know, pretty obvious, and one Circle. Either wish this card or Gazelle were back to 2, but, you know, it's just kind of wishful thinking at this point. But, yeah, Circle's still not a bad card, so why not? And for the other traps I'm running, I'm only running them as one of each. One Roar, one Rage, and, of course, there's the also earlier Imperial Order. Imperial Order is such a good card going in this deck, especially because there's a lot of spell-reliant decks, like Drytron again. You know, you play this, they can't really use their ritual spells against Sky Striker. They can't even use their spells at all. So, like, Imperial Order can really come in clutch whenever you need it to, but the reason I'm only running Roar and Rage at 1 each is simply because you can easily dump these more effectively with Gazelle. So, like, you're always going to be able to see this regardless. Even with Desires at 3, it's not going to be an issue. So, yeah, as long as you played your combos correctly, you should always see at least one of these in your opening hand, or at least just dump them in the graveyard to recycle them later. So just bear that in mind. Now, of course, if you don't feel like running Imperial Order, you could run a second Rage or a second Roar. It's really up to you. All right, so for the extra deck, you know, pretty much the same lineup as last time. There's only like one minor difference, or actually 2 of them actually. So 3 Balinks, 3 Sunlight Wolf, 2 Heat Leo. You know, that's pretty standard. I decided to cut Nightmare Phoenix simply because, you know, I already got plenty of back row removal, both in the main and the side deck. So I decided to bring back Splash Mage just because, you know, it's an easy Access Code Talker, 1 Update Jammer, 1 Transcode Talker, and of course 1 copy of Access Code Talker. So can't really stress that enough. And if you don't have Access Code, you know, cards like Transcode Talker by itself should be enough. You could also run like an Avermax. Or if you wanted to, as long as you don't use Mirage Stallio's effect, you could actually go into Appaloosa if you wanted. You could also go Borlo Dragon or whatever. But anyway, moving on. Speaking of which, 1 copy of Mirage Stallio. Now, Mirage Stallio is mostly a card you're going to play going second, because if you play going first, and again, you don't know if your opponent's going to main deck a Nibiru or not, you're just asking for it. So better just to save this going second, because, you know, that way if your opponent already has an established board, and if you already baited out all their negates, then they're not going to risk, you know, clearing out their own board with the Mirage Stallio. So, and also if it's used for link material, you can actually bounce back a card. But Mirage Stallio is just a good enabler. It brings out a free salad monster. I'm so glad this card came back to 1. I decided to cut Baguska because it's really not doing anything. So instead I'm playing a number 60 Dugaris. I mostly just use it for the draw 2 effect and discard 1, of course. But if I really need to go for the OTK, this is another good way to do so, just to double the attack points of one of your monsters. And yeah, just kind of go from there. And of course, 1 copy of Abyss Dweller, just because, you know, it locks out graveyard effects. So Abyss Dweller is still super good, and it's probably going to be the card you go into the most, especially with Parallel Exceed. So yeah, Abyss Dweller, it's nuts. All right, so the side deck's a little different this time around. Playing 3 copies of Artifact Lancia. Still a really good card. Stops Tri Brigade, it stops Drytron, it stops Eldritch. Even Invoke too, because, you know, they're going to use Invocation to try to go into their Perfect Trio. So yeah, Lancia is really nuts. I'm not running Nibiru anymore simply because it's just not doing it as much as it used to right now, because, like, just right now everybody can easily play around it, because, like, Tri Brigade or Zoo players, they can easily recover from them. And plus, not to mention, Tri Brigade goes into Appaloosa most of the time. There's still a couple of Virtual World players too, so they can easily turbo into a Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. So yeah, I felt like Nibiru is just not doing its job right now. So instead, I'm running 1 copy of Pankratops. Really excellent going second, because, you know, it's huge. You can attack over anything, especially because Appaloosa, when Tri Brigades make it, it's usually really small. It only has like I think it's, I can't think of how much attack points it has. But anyway, the point is it's not going to be very big, so you could easily run over it. And if they force the trap, it's a good way to force out their trap card too. So distribute it and force out a negate, and Appaloosa becomes super weak. But anyway, it's also good to deal with floodgates too. Like, there can be only 1, because we do have some Guru players too. Yeah, so like Pancratops is just super good going second because it basically fixes any problem. I wish it was back at 3, but I don't think it's ever going to come back to 3 again, so sad to say. But anyway, moving on. Still running 3 copies of Forbidden Droplet. Droplet is just so good because I love its interaction with the Imperial Order. You can just send it for cost and still resolve its effect. Now, if you don't have this, there is a budget alternative, which I will show you in just a moment. But yeah, moving on, I'm also running 3 copies of Cosmic Cyclone. Since back row is still kind of like very problematic right now, especially against, you know, like some people still like to abuse the Eldritch engine. It's a good way to just clear them out because, you know, the fact that it banishes, they can't recycle themselves. So that's pretty nice. Another good way just to chain off of floodgates too. So like as soon as your opponent hits you with a floodgate, just chain the Cosmic Cyclone, get rid of it, and don't have to worry about that problem again. Solemn Strike is still an impactful card, so try to get rid of those too. I'm also running 1 copy of Harpy's Feather Duster, so that way I have 4 copies of, well, basically a Heavy Storm essentially, but a one-sided one. I wish I had Lightning Storm, but for right now, I'm only running these. Oops, dropped a card here. I'm also running 3 copies of Anti-Spell Fragrance. This is primarily for Sky Strikers, but again, for any spell-heavy strategy, this is also really good because, you know, it slows them down and gives you a chance to basically play against them. And of course, 1 copy of Red Reboot. This, again, just for any trap-heavy strategy, so not just specifically for the Tri-Brigade, but also for, like, Eldritch control strategies like Guru and stuff like that. All right, now for the budget option for Forbidden Droplets, again, if you don't have it, and for the record, it's not Dark Ruler More. This is actually a card that I've been considering myself, is 3 copies of Rivalry of the Warlords. So again, if you don't have Droplets, try this card out because it's super hilarious. So against Tri-Brigade, since their whole lineups is basically different types, Beast, Beast Warrior, or Wing Beast, as soon as they summon out that Fractal and you spring this on them, they're stuck. They cannot really play around it because they don't have an inherent back row removal card other than Nightmare Phoenix or something, but that's a Fiend monster. So yeah, it's super hilarious just to play this against them. And at that point, they really don't know what to do because they can't go into their first Link 2 monster because that one's pure Beast. They can't even go into Shira because if I'm not mistaken, that one is a Wing Beast. So yeah, and Fractal, I believe, is the Beast Warriors. So yeah, it's like super hilarious. It's also good against Sky Strikers because if you have this already and they summon out their Ray, they can't really do anything because Ray is Warrior and they're not going to be able to go into their Link monsters. So yeah, it becomes super nutty just to like mess with your opponent that way. Even against the Invoked, as soon as they summon out Alistair, you spring this on them, they can't even do anything. I mean, the best they can do is go into Artemis, but they can't go into Mechaba, they can't go to Purgatrio. Heck, even against Eldritch, you know, like since they often use the Eldritch or Dogmatic engines, it basically just shuts them off. So that way they can't like go into like any super heavy combos. The only thing they could probably get around it with is Maximus, you know, just to dump Intis, but as long as you don't let that Intis resolve, this can pretty much stick at all times. But anyway, I figured I'd just share that with you guys, and yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and I will catch you guys again next time.